The bells of Valdaran rang before sunrise. Not for a wedding. Not for a victory. For an execution. Rain poured over the kingdom as thousands of people filled the castle courtyard. Soldiers stood in long rows with their swords ready. The crowd whispered nervously while thunder rolled across the sky. At the center of the platform stood Crown Prince Alaric. His hands were chained. His white royal cloak was soaked with rain and dirt, but he still stood tall. Calm. Silent. Above him sat King Edric, ruler of Valdaran. The greatest warrior king in the land. The man who had won more wars than anyone alive. And today, he looked completely broken. Beside the prince stood the executioner, holding a huge axe. Nobody could believe this was happening. Just a few months ago, Prince Alaric was loved by everyone. The people called him the Golden Prince. He was kind. Honest. Different from his father. He visited poor villages without guards. He gave food to hungry families during winter. He listened to common people instead of ignoring them like most royals did. The kingdom loved him. But kingdoms were built on war. And war had nearly destroyed Valdaran. For the past year, the northern empire of Norhallow had invaded the kingdom. Their armies burned villages, destroyed cities, and killed thousands. Every battle was worse than the last. Valdaran was losing. Then suddenly, the war stopped. The enemy army pulled back north without warning. The kingdom celebrated. People believed Prince Alaric's father had scared the enemy away. But then the letters were found. Secret letters hidden inside the prince's room. Letters with the seal of the enemy emperor. The news spread across the kingdom overnight. The crown prince had been speaking to the enemy in secret. The nobles called him a traitor. The army demanded punishment. And King Edric ordered his own son to die. Thunder cracked across the sky. A royal guard stepped forward and shouted to the crowd. Prince Alaric of House Valen, you are accused of betraying the kingdom and helping the enemy. What do you say for yourself? The prince slowly lifted his head. I wanted peace, he said quietly. The crowd exploded in anger. Traitor. Coward. You betrayed us. Someone threw rotten fruit at him. But Alaric did not move. King Edric stood from his throne and walked down toward the platform. The crowd instantly became silent. Rain dripped from the king's crown as he stopped in front of his son. You admit you spoke with the enemy? The king asked. Yes. You hid it from your king? Yes. You betrayed Valdaran? Alaric looked directly into his father's eyes. No. The king's face hardened. Then explain. The prince looked at the people standing below. At wounded soldiers. At crying mothers. At hungry children. Then he spoke. You think we were winning the war, he said. We weren't. The crowd became quiet. Our armies were falling apart. Our food was running out. Another year of war would have destroyed this kingdom. Some nobles shouted angrily, but Alaric kept talking. The emperor of Norhallow offered peace. And you accepted it behind my back? King Edric growled. I accepted it to save our people. The crowd started yelling again. But this time, the prince raised his voice. You weren't on the battlefield. Everyone froze. I saw boys burned alive during sieges. I saw starving soldiers fighting over scraps of food. I saw fathers bury their sons in frozen ground because there were too many bodies. The rain kept falling. Even the soldiers looked uneasy now. Alaric turned back to his father. You taught me that a king protects his people. I did. So I protected them. The king stepped closer. At what cost? For the first time, fear appeared in the prince's eyes. The emperor demanded one condition. What condition? Alaric hesitated. That I never tell anyone the truth. Before the king could answer, the castle gates suddenly burst open. A wounded messenger rode into the courtyard on a dying horse. Your Majesty, he shouted. The horse collapsed. The messenger fell into the mud, covered in blood. The king grabbed him. What about Norhallow? The messenger looked terrified. Their armies are marching south again. Panic spread through the crowd. That's impossible. We had peace. The messenger shook his head. They march under black banners. The king's face turned pale. Prince Alaric closed his eyes. They're here, he whispered. King Edric slowly looked back at his son. What did you do? Alaric swallowed hard. I didn't betray Valdaran. Thunder shook the sky again. Then the prince whispered the words that terrified everyone. I betrayed them. Silence filled the courtyard. The prince stared toward the northern mountains. There is no Norhollow Empire anymore. Nobody spoke. 3 months ago, something attacked them from beyond the Frostfang Pass. The crowd stared at him in horror. Entire cities disappeared overnight. Nothing. The king's voice became quiet. What attacked them? Alaric answered slowly. I don't know. Another messenger arrived. Then another. Each one brought worse news. Northern towns were gone. Castles were empty. Whole armies had vanished. Whatever was coming south was not human. Prince Alaric finally revealed the truth. He and the enemy emperor had secretly planned to unite their kingdoms against the real threat coming from the north. But before they could prepare, Norhollow fell. And the letters exposing the prince were discovered too early. Now it was too late. The same people who screamed for Alaric's death now looked at him with fear instead. King Edric stared at his son for a long time. Then finally, he turned toward the executioner. Remove his chains. The chains fell to the ground. Prince Alaric rubbed his wrists slowly. Far beyond the city walls, strange war horns echoed through the storm. Deep. Cold. Not human. The people began crying and praying. King Edric placed a hand on his son's shoulder. My son, he said quietly, can we still save the kingdom? Alaric looked toward the dark northern mountains. For the first time all day, he looked unsure. I don't know. Then the horns sounded again. Closer this time.